He had flown 7,800 miles from home to help feed the hungry. Today, he began his final journey home, pushed out of a morgue. American-Canadian Jacob Flickinger was 33 years old. He leaves behind his partner Sandy and their 1-year-old boy. With him as he crossed the Egyptian border today, his friends in life and death. Australian Lozami Francom, known as Zomi, Damien Sobel from Poland, and their British security team, John Chapman, James Henderson, and James Kirby, whose cousin today remembered him as someone who wanted to help.
He was completely selfless, which explains why he went to Gaza.
World Central Kitchen, or WCK, says it coordinated with the Israeli military late Monday night as a convoy left its warehouse in Deir al-Balah by the sea in central Gaza. The group says Israeli munitions hit an initial vehicle. Workers then moved to another vehicle that was struck, and then a third vehicle that was struck as they traveled on or next to the coastal road that Israel designates for humanitarian aid.
We were targeted deliberately, non-stop, until everybody was dead in this convoy.
Jose Andres is the founder of World Central Kitchen. He's a celebrity chef whose activism and charity has earned him deep respect among policymakers. The group also fed Israelis after Hamas's October 7th terrorist attack. He spoke to Reuters today.
It looks like it's not a war against terrorism anymore. Seems this is a war against humanity itself.
Israel denies that accusation and says it takes pain to limit civilian casualties. In response to the attack, it opened a joint situation room with international humanitarian groups and launched an investigation whose initial finding was laid out last night by Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Herzl Halevi.
It was a mistake that followed a misidentification at night during a war in a very complex conditions.
My colleague Kadri Inzamam and I spent months reporting in the state of Maharashtra in western India on one of the world's most common commodities, sugar. It's no surprise that cutting sugarcane is incredibly difficult work, but what we uncovered goes well beyond that. We found that this is a system that impacts every aspect of a person's life, especially for women. Companies like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo are buying sugar from Maharashtra, where the labor system exploits women and pushes them to get unnecessary hysterectomies as a way to keep them working in the fields. In Maharashtra, usually sugarcane is cut in teams of 2, and it's almost always a married couple. And what ends up happening is that these girls that are born into sugarcane cutting families, they often can't really afford to keep bringing them along. So you have child marriage actually being encouraged in some ways because of the way that sugar is cut. For sugarcane workers, typically what happens is they take on an advance at the beginning of the season from a contractor who works for a sugar mill. They'll take on debt through this advance system and they'll end up going back year after year after year. The pay for sugarcane workers is so low that during the season, missing even a day of work can really, really amp up your debt and cut into your sense of security. These laborers literally cannot afford to miss any work. So think about that in the context of something like routine healthcare when they do need to see a doctor. Not only do they miss that day's wages, they actually have to pay the money back to the contractor. And then on top of that come the medical fees and the fees for transportation. That's why a lot of women opt for something like a hysterectomy, which they see as this kind of last-ditch solution. And doctors are sort of incentivized to recommend the surgery, even in cases where it's not necessarily needed. So what ends up happening is that a lot of these women end up with really serious problems that can't be treated later. I've reported on supply chains for years, and it still blows my mind that it's so difficult for consumers to know what goes into making the products they buy. Who would have ever thought that this level of brutality could exist in something as simple as, a can of soda?
Here's some dogs.
2 by 2, these precious puppies entered the Ark at JFK. John Cuticelli Jr., founder and chairman, says the name speaks to its occupants. Plenty of dogs, cats, horses.
We do goats here and several other kinds of exotic animals.
African greys, rabbits, turtles, all stayed here while in transit at the airport.
We were actually awarded this opportunity by the Port Authority.
Cudaselli adds the Ark is a private venture with exclusive rights to operate at JFK for the next 30 years.
Why is this a lucrative business to put your money into?
Quite frankly, we will provide the very best service. It's a really needed service.
Pet parents, pet shippers, or airlines have the option of keeping companion animals here at the Ark's Pet Oasis before or after a flight. The bulldog puppies flew in from Bogota, got checked out by Dr. Lauren Neuendorf upon arrival.
Whenever we have a pet enter the facility, we always want to do a thorough exam to make sure that the pet has not become distressed in flight or anything that had happened prior to flight.
Manager Joanne O'Connell introduced us to some of their other guests.
They're in transit. Yes, these gentlemen are going back.
She says back to Afghanistan. This canine works alongside our brave men and women in uniform. Then there are dogs that couldn't be left behind in a war zone.
Our servicemen actually meet them while they're in the military, and they get a relationship with the dog. And then when they come back, they can't bring the dog back on the military flight, so the SPCA brings it back free of charge.
Right next door to the Pet Oasis.
This is the Ritz-Carlton of horse export lounges.
It's here that horses prep for flights out of the country. Horses like the stunning Messina typically stay about 5 hours, are fed, watered, and kept calm with opera. They also get weighed before boarding.
Imagine putting this thing in a box and then bringing it to an airplane and then hoisting it up in the airplane.
Imagine what the horse thinks of it all. If only we knew. As for those adorable puppies,
Their time at the Pet Oasis is up, and now they're heading to Florida.
this time on the road, not in the air. From JFK, Vanessa Murdoch, CBS 2 News.
He was so cute, the little puppy was cute.
They
I just stand to be
adorable.
pampered.
I know.
I'd like to the airlines play a little opera for me before I have to fly. That's for sure. Okay.
And maybe change your shoes, too. You're like, that's great, the horse. I think that's fascinating.
Without a doubt. It's a nice feature.
I visited 9 Blockbusters in my state and returned some of my 20-year-old VHS tapes. And I'm not talking about locations that used to exist or the last remaining Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon. No, these modern Blockbusters take the form of small community boxes similar to those little free libraries. The free Blockbuster boxes are unofficial community projects not tied to the actual Blockbuster brand. You can drop off VHS tapes and DVDs as well as anything else you would like to share with your neighbors. The idea was started by an ex-Blockbuster employee who wanted to upcycle old used newspaper boxes. Anyone can create a free Blockbuster box that typically uses the recycled materials painted with the classic Blockbuster colors. I traveled to all the locations around the Portland area and I wanted to see how many locations had an up and running free box. I also wanted to make sure that the boxes weren't emptied by dork resellers, but to make this video interesting, I'll be donating some VHSs myself to the many boxes we come across. Free Blockbuster was created by word of mouth, and hopefully this video inspires other individuals to start their little Blockbuster boxes. Maybe someone will even be the first to create a free Hollywood video box. So the big thing is we're going to make sure that the locations that we go to today, that the boxes are there, if they're well stocked, and just to see if they're even there in the first place, because they might just be on freeblockbuster.org, but there might not actually be a box there. Oh, dude, look at this, look at this. Oh, this is cool. They updated their sign because I cheated a little bit, and I looked online. They actually took the time to make a placard. That's actually really cool. And then if we look at it, it looks like a lot of the movies are sun faded. But surprisingly, they have stuff, and we'll just leave them at 007. Of the 9 documented locations, only 7 existed. Hopefully in the future there becomes a reporting method to help those navigating the website better utilize the map functionality. Out of those 7 locations, I was pretty impressed with the overall selection minus the last final box. And I love how some individuals go all out, like the TikTok user Dan Milano, who even made printable Blockbuster sleeves for the public, which will be included in the description below. If you're interested in joining the media movement, you can go to freeblockbuster.org to get started.
If you look at any Kinujimi painting,
He's speaking about war and revolutions.
What do you see? The red symbolizes power.
He's one of the most important living artists in our lifetime.
The world had never seen anything like this.
The end of Iran's monarchy came early today.
We fought for democracy. We had the right to criticize the government.
He can't even process the news without making art about it.
The museum realized my paintings is too political, so secretly they took it out. I never saw it again. A friend of mine said, get out of the country right away.
He was lucky to have got out. They would have killed him.
فکر می‌کنی امیدی هست کارا رو بگیریم؟
آدمای جمهوری اسلامی هست من مطمئنم که اتفاق نمیفته.
You were the head of the museum.
Right. Do you remember what happened to these paintings?
I don't know. I have no idea.
When he says he doesn't remember, do you believe that?
I don't know.
Niksat was always a revolutionary.
I was interrogated, beaten up, stabbed with the bayonet.
His art is threatening to people. It's threatening to the Iranian establishment. It's also threatening to people in the West.
That exhibition changed our life forever.
They are holding a gun, and I'm suggesting that it's time to get armed.
It's just a big chunk of his life that's disappeared.
You can read what happened in the revolution through those paintings. I want that back.
Dear Premis,
महात्मा और भाइयों,
Mahatmas and Baichis,
अब की बार देश विदेशों से काफी लोग होली मनाने के लिए सत्यलोक आश्रम में आए हुए हैं.
This time a lot of people have come to celebrate Holi in Satlok Ashram from different countries even.
अच्छी बात है कि
It's very good.
इस पावन पर्व पर
that in this auspicious occasion
जो भगवान के भक्तों को अविनाशी बनाता है,
that makes the
और ये दिखाता है
that shows that the devotees of the God become immortal,
कितनी भी क्रूरता क्यों ना हो,
and it doesn't shake the faith of a devotee. It doesn't matter how much is the cruelty and terrorism around it.
महान पर्व को मनाने के लिए लोग आए हुए हैं.
To celebrate this greatest festival, people have gathered here.
इंटरनेट के माध्यम से
and through the internet,
इसी कार्यक्रम को
this program
दुनिया में लोग देख रहे हैं.
is being webcasted throughout the world.
ये कार्यक्रम आपके ब्रिटेन के अंदर, अमेरिका के अंदर,
is going to the Britain, America,
इजराइल के अंदर,
in Israel,
दुबई के अंदर,
Dubai,
और साउथ अमेरिका के अंदर,
in South America, everywhere it's being,
जहाँ ये इंटरनेट की सुविधा,
wherever the facility of internet is there, connectivity is there,
वहाँ इस कार्यक्रम
it's been spread over.
देख रहे हैं. और ये ऐसा माध्यम है जिसके जरिए
such a strong media it is that through which we
आप बहुत बड़े समाज को
you can
कर सकते हैं,
propagate the message to the biggest section of society, a bigger, larger section of society, give the message of the spirituality to them,
और जो अपने ज्ञान की महानता है, विशेषता
and the greatness of the knowledge that India has can be also shared, can be also shown.
आपने होली खेली,
Today you have played Holi.
इसमें नाना प्रकार के रंग डाले जाते हैं.
There have been different kinds of the colors that you have are thrown in Holi,
रंगों का यही महत्व है,
and the significance of these colors is
धुल जाएंगे,
they can be washed out slowly.
साबुन लगाने के बाद
when you apply soap, the color will also fade away.
और जो भक्ति का
But the color of the spirituality, devotion,
छूटे, ऐसी प्रार्थना
it should be such a way that we request to the God, we pray to the God that please do not let the color of devotion fade away in our life.
The United States will not let Ukraine fail. This coalition will not let Ukraine fail, and the free world will not let Ukraine fail. Ukraine's survival is on the line, and all of our security is on the line. Together, this contact group continues to dig deeper to get vital security assistance to Ukraine. The Czech Republic recently procured 800,000 urgently needed artillery shells. Germany, France, Denmark, and Sweden have each recently announced important new military aid packages. And these are investments in Ukraine's just battle against Russian aggression. But these are also investments in our shared security, in European security, and in global security.
The intersection of Royal Street and St. Peter in New Orleans is known as Doreen's Corner. As we reported back in January of 2022, Doreen Kitchens is a local institution. On the street, Doreen dresses for the weather. Doreen got all dressed up for our interview, and maybe that's what prompted me to ask her where she dreams of playing someday.
Kennedy Center, Carnegie Hall, Albert Hall.
Kevin Struthers is the director of jazz programming at the Kennedy Center.
Well, I about fell off my couch. The next morning when I got to work, people were calling, and within a few hours, I had Doreen's cell phone. The first thing she said to me after she let out a little scream was, "I should have asked for $1 million." Oh
my goodness.
There she is!
You can figure out where it went from there.
We're so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Now that we are here, a headline performer.
Yes.
Today.
It's awesome.
So what does that do?
That shoots through me like lightning. It lets me know that it's not all for nothing.
In the afternoon, the band got some time on stage for a sound check. These are all top flight musicians in their own right.
I'm so looking forward to, just being better than even they expect us to be. I'm really looking forward to trying to hold that audience in my hands.
It's showtime.
Okay, good.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Kennedy Center stage, Doreen Kitchens.
For the longest time, jazz in New Orleans was mostly a guy's club. Female singers, oh yes, but among jazz musicians, Doreen is something of a pioneer for women. And her long notes, a legendary. Watch. It's all over in what seems like no time. Doreen had said she wanted to hold the audience in her hands. Well, she and the band got a standing O. And Doreen got called back for an encore.
just like home now. They ain't got no problem participating now. You're done good. Trying to tell you, man, it's something about it. Looking forward to the next time, of course. Oh, man.
Last year's hurricane season was record-breaking. You may recall the use of the Greek alphabet after all of the listed names for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season were used. Well, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicted it would be an above-average hurricane season, and this year they are saying the same thing. Let's get right out to On Your Side, Renata Gregorio. She is live at Jack's Beach this morning for us with a look ahead. Good morning, Renata.
Good morning, Keitha. Well, next time you come to the beach, you'll notice something new. These signs to keep off the dunes. And if you somehow miss the signs, maybe you won't get past this rope. Now, this is all a good reminder with the upcoming storm about just how important these dunes are, especially because this is not expected to be the only storm this season. The beach day before the storm?
When you're from the north and we get winter, so we try and soak up the sun here in the south, so.
Relax and enjoy the weather before the storm. There may be less sunny days ahead. 2020 was the 5th year in a row with an above normal Atlantic hurricane season. It hasn't stopped the locals or tourists who, now that COVID restrictions are lifting, are really just glad to be anywhere else.
Of course, we had a nice hotel at Disney, so that's kind of, so if we have to stay indoors, we're stuck inside, yeah.
More people, more storms. It's all part of the reason you'll see this, ropes and signs to stay off the sand dunes.
Our sand dunes take the blunt end of that storm surge.
Beaches Sea Turtle Patrol's Kevin Brown is helping get these signs up.
We want these dunes to get as big and beautiful as they can, because when we do get a storm, we're gonna lose them. We're gonna lose them. And when they do, it's a natural effect, and then we need to come back and do our management again so that we can take on the next storm.
So big moral of the story, protecting the dunes, really easy way that you can help keep property from being destroyed on the other side of them here. Also, I like the takeaway to be like these guys and still enjoy the sun even when you know that it's about to rain out here. I'm Renata Gregorio, live in Jack's Beach. First Coast News, on your side.
So someone who has never been to New Mexico, or how would you describe it?
Blue skies. Like how I wrote a song that says, the sky is so big it wraps you up in blue. We used to drink out of the streams in the mountains and all that stuff, never ever got sick. There was nothing that could poison you or kill you, except maybe rattlesnakes and radioactivity. I didn't really put the pieces together until about like 6 years ago when I saw a presentation by the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium. And then in like 2 hours, it all just came, the truth just came like crashing into my life. My brother died of stomach cancer. My mom died of bone cancer. One of my sisters is surviving brain tumors, and the other one is surviving thyroid cancer. They're all 4 that were alive at that time were affected. And during those 2 hours of that presentation, I thought, everything just fit together all of a sudden, you know.
Pino's family was one of many that lived near Carrizozo, a bustling railway hub in the early 1900s and just 35 miles from the first atomic bomb test in 1945. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States, and although radiation exposure is a known risk, it may be impossible to know how much radiation exposure in this community influenced a person's chances of getting cancer.
Some farmers from the Rio Grande brought green chili and onions and beans and information about downwinders. Please help spread the word. What's your name?
On July 16, 1945, the U.S. government detonated the first atomic bomb in what was called the Trinity test.
This is a national emergency.
The culmination of 3 years of Manhattan Project research dramatized this summer in the blockbuster movie Oppenheimer. The film shows the team of scientists living and working for years in the New Mexico desert at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, around 200 miles from the Trinity test site, which is here, in the middle of what's now the 2.2 million acre White Sands Missile Range. How much did the Los Alamos team know about the risk of radiation before the Trinity test?
Not very much.
The Los Alamos scientists knew radiation could do serious damage to the human body, but didn't know it could cause cancer.
They did more and more detailed calculations trying to understand what they weren't getting right. Ending the night before, they thought there would be substantial fallout. They made extensive preparations to evacuate most of New Mexico, and they thought as long as the number didn't go above 750 millisieverts, people would be okay. We know differently today.
Under normal circumstances, we are exposed to about 6 millisieverts of radiation per year on average. The gadget's core was made of 13 pounds of plutonium, of which only 3 pounds combusted. The other 10 pounds dispersed into the atmosphere.
About an hour after the test, the plume began to drift to the northeast off the White Sand Missile Range.
Manhattan Project scientists realized they had dramatically underestimated the amount of radiation. Still, no civilian evacuations happened. Days later, they found a family living on a ranch nearby. Scientists estimated they'd been exposed to 2,000 millisieverts of external radiation, as much as the most highly exposed survivor would be in Hiroshima or Nagasaki.
After the Trinity test, they had a cover story. They repeatedly have said Trinity was a test conducted on unoccupied government lands. But Trinity was also an accident. It greatly exceeded Chernobyl, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island. It was the first nuclear accident in history and the worst nuclear accident in history.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
One of my favorite chants my dad used to do during the 2011 to 2014 protests in Moscow was "one for all and all for one." This is a phrase that we're all familiar with, but most of us often forget. Dictators like Putin want us to forget it. They want us to forget how strong we can be when we work together. They want us to forget how much we can accomplish when we stand side by side. Because it is that much harder for any dictator to fight an international united front than each of us individually. Now, you might think to yourself, Dasha, why should I care about this? Geographically, the United States is quite far away from Putin. Is he really that threatening to us, or are you just trying to raise unnecessary alarm? And to that, I want to respond with another thought. If we don't stand up for them now, then who will be left to stand up for us later? Cyber attacks, spreading of propaganda and disinformation, meddling in the elections, bribing your government officials. This has been and is continuing to happen. The West, Europe, and the United States have tried talking to Putin. And where did that get us? The illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, and now a full-scale war in Ukraine. Tyrants and dictators don't want diplomatic relations. All they want is power. When I was younger, I didn't really understand how my dad could be so optimistic about the future. He was constantly threatened, arrested, followed. Our family would be followed by men dressed in all black, wearing baseball caps and ridiculous-looking fanny packs when we would go to the cinema. And after a while, my dad decided to make a game out of it. Whenever we would get on the subway, we waited until the last moment and quickly got out of the car right before doors closed so that FSB agents were left behind. A unique childhood experience. I think one of the main reasons for my dad's success is that he's always been incredible at channeling his emotions into hard work and motivation. He wouldn't get sad, and he was certainly never afraid. Instead, he would get fired up. Fired up because he saw a group of ex-KGB corrupt criminals come into power and destroy his country. Seeing that motivated him so much more to work that much harder to stop them. And that is what makes a true patriot. My dad is an incredibly courageous and selfless man, and I can only dream to be like him one day. He doesn't run or hide, and unlike my father, Putin is a coward. A coward who with his cronies can no longer hide from the consequences of what they have done to my country and democracy around the world. And you, everyone who's sitting here today or watching this online, you can help now. You, unlike millions of those who have been threatened and murdered and silenced in Russia, you have a voice. Please don't take your freedom for granted. Russia is my home. It's where I was born, it's where I grew up, it's where I became the person I am today. And I will promise you that I will continue to speak up, tell the truth, and I will continue fighting until Russia is a free and democratic country. Thank you very much. Free Alexei Navalny.